Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the closing bell here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group, securities offered by MoneyBlock, here to wrap up today's action. And man, was there some action. Just look at the volume at the New York Stock Exchange. If you look at the 200-day average, it's around 926 million. Well, we had 1.1 billion shares trade on the New York Stock Exchange floor. So there was quite a bit of activity. Turning our attention to the major indices, the Dow Jones finished the day actually in the green. It was up about 0.4%, and it continued its outperformance. While the S&P, it lagged. It was down about 0.4%, and the NASDAQ was down 1.4%. And again, the tech sector was beat up. It ended the day in negative territory for the second consecutive day. And that's extending a decline so far this week that's not only down by about 2.7%, but it also has the composite now below its 50-day moving average at 52.64. And that's the first time that this has happened since November 14th. Again, I watch this very closely only because then I start to see some maybe institutional investors getting a little bit leery about maybe some of their large cap holdings and small cap tech holdings. We're going to keep an eye on that very closely. Now, the technology sector, which accounts for basically 21% of the S&P 500, was pressuring the S&Ps, but the S&Ps, they held up. And the sector that was really weighing on the S&Ps from a technical perspective was the semiconductors. If you look at the Philly Semiconductor ETF, SMH, it was down about 4.9%. And we also had large cap, big shot Apple down about $1.05 at 109.47. Now, there was a discussion that we had at the Strategy Now session at 1:30 Eastern Time where, there was some reports and some headlines that suppliers were basically getting hurt because there's fear that iPhone 7s aren't going to be moving off the shelves this holiday season. Once you start hearing discussion of product sales, especially with Apple, you start looking at their suppliers. And if there is a weak demand, those suppliers are going to get hit. So while Apple fell about 1%, you saw Broadcom, which was ticker symbol AVGO, that was down 770 today, trading at 162.79. You also saw Cirrus Logic, that's CRUS is the ticker, down 568. You saw handset maker Qualcomm down 397 at 64.16, and Skyworks, ticker symbol SWKS, down about $5. So you're seeing losses somewhere between 4.5% and 10% on these names. Now, this could be profit taking because it's been unbelievable moves to the upside. And granted, the Philly Semiconductor Index itself, that ETF that tracks a lot of the semis, it's up 26% this year. So yes, it could be some logical profit taking, but I wanted to make sure that we note it here. The other sector that's weighing in the technology segment is biotech. Talked about this earlier today, but IBB and biotech names in general were hit today. The biotech index, IBB, was down about 458 or around 1.7%. Want to keep a close eye on these biotech names. There's a lot of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 development stages that are starting to come out, and these have had some impressive runs. These were some of the stalwarts. When we started this initial run of the upside post-election, biotech was one of the leaders. Again, we could be seeing some profit taking in here. Now, if you take a look at the broader healthcare space, the sector in general is down about 0.8%, but not as much as the biotech sector, which is higher beta, more speculative area. You're also seeing other counter-cyclical areas that spent some time in the negative area today. For example, real estate. Real estate has had a tough time for the last couple of weeks. Even though we had decent construction numbers that have been coming out, real estate was down about 1.6%. Consumer staples are starting to get hit, down about 0.7%. Now, the struggles obviously aren't because of the data that's coming out. The struggles in these counter-cyclical areas are coming in the face of a bond market that has yields that continue to skyrocket. Now, bonds did come off some of their best levels today, but we did have the benchmark 10-year up at 2.44%. That's 6 basis points higher. And we also had the shorter term 2-year yield increase by about 2 basis points at 1.14%. Now, while these yields did pressure some of the defensive orientated groups, it has been a huge catalyst for areas like the financial sector. So you're seeing large banks like JP Morgan, JPM, they were up $1.62. And you also saw Bank of America up about 38 cents today. As long as that yield curve, in other words, the difference between the 2-year and the 10-year, and just seeing the yield curve continually to steepen higher and higher, that's going to benefit institutions like Chase, like Bank of America, and banks in general. You also saw on the cyclical side that energies, the space was up about 0.3%, and we continue to see that oil is challenging the upside. Now, West Texas crude did finish the day off of its best levels. It was right around 51.06, up about 3.3% after OPEC came out with their announcement yesterday. You saw that oil has been on a 15% spike in the last 48 hours, basically. It did not challenge that 51.93 2016 high so far. I saw the resistance kick in at 51.45. That's where I expected it to kick in, and it pulled back from there into the close of business. We're going to watch how this is all going to play out as far as the agreements that were met in Vienna with the other OPEC nations. Yes, they did agree to capping supply and production, but let's be honest here, folks. If you go look at it, they were pumping so much oil out of the ground at that point, cutting 300,000 barrels from production in some of these countries. It's literally and figuratively not a drop in the barrel. The other sectors that we saw some support and actually some movement to the upside. For a second day in a row, we saw the industrial sector up 0.8%. We also saw transports that were on the move. The transport sector was up about 0.6%. You could look at IYT. Specifically, you could look at some railroad names like CSX was up about 81 cents at 36.62. Again, you're seeing that CSX, they were raising their guidance. So they're getting ready maybe for some infrastructure plays that are going to be playing out now that we're getting closer to the Trump presidency coming into fruition. Tomorrow, what we want to keep an eye on as far as the data situation is going to be the employment situation report for November. That's actually going to be released at 8:30 Eastern time, which is the exact time that we will be covering the overnight action. So join us. We'll cover that report and all the action that's happening at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time in Europe, as well as what happened overnight in Asia. Till then, have a wonderful evening. We will see you here at MarketStream.live bright and early at 8:30 a.m. for overnight action, and then join us at 9:30 Eastern time in the a.m. for what's hot on the open. Till then, have a wonderful evening, folks.